welcome to Quick Tech News, where we keep you updated in the world of tech without wasting your time. DJI is the undisputed market leader in both personal and commercial drones. If you've ever flown a drone, it was likely a DJI product. If you've heard about or seen footage from a drone, it's likely a DJI product. According to Drone Industry Insights, DJI accounts for around 77% of drone sales in the US. No other rival comes even close, with the second spot apparently going to Intel with 3.7%. I didn't even know Intel made drones until I began researching for this video. Anyway, DJI perhaps single-handedly have destroyed the notion that Chinese tech companies are nothing but cheap, underwhelming copies of innovation from the Western world. But what about the company's ethics? Is it a company that you could be proud of being the owner of their products? I ask this question because just last week, DJI were added by the Department of Commerce in the US to the ban list, which essentially blocks any US businesses from dealing with or supplying components to them. The story starts with Frank Wang, founder and chief executive officer of DJI. He started the company back in 2006, building components for remote-controlled helicopter prototypes. He and a fellow classmate studied under a renowned Chinese researcher who assisted them with developing a tracking system for the devices. By 2009, the tech was good enough to fly an unmanned chopper around Mount Everest, where it coped well with the weather conditions and high altitude. After this, Wang began hiring young and hungry engineers to develop components for what we now know of as drones. Early drone enthusiasts would source and assemble their own components, which would often result in clunky controls and buggy software. DJI wanted to and eventually succeeded in eliminating this issue by delivering a fully functional product that worked straight out of the box. By 2015, they launched the Phantom 3, which added a built-in camera that could display a live image of what the drone could see in the user's screen. This was a revolutionary moment and one that saw DJI's rise to the top, which would remove many of their competitors from the market. Wang was never much for interviews. In fact, he apparently hasn't made a media appearance since 2016. Instead, he chooses to focus on what he is interested in, which has always been engineering. DJI's hiring process is apparently very strict, with inclusions such as a personality quiz where responses should be analytical, not artsy. Those who are deemed to be engineering focused are then tasked with soldering drone components together. According to this Bloomberg article, until recently even sales and marketing people were made to do this task. Once you are hired, the competitive nature of DJI continues. They separate workers into teams and challenge them to come up with new ideas and products. The winning group gets all of the praise and has their vision realized, whilst the losing team must assist them in bringing the idea to reality. Employees are often asked to evaluate the performance of their peers in surveys, and this data is used internally to judge the performance of departments and to help decide salaries. Part of the intensity comes from where DJI is located, Shenzhen, which is somewhat similar to Silicon Valley in the US. The tech industry is booming there, and it's not always the best tech that wins. Sometimes you have to play dirty to get ahead. This company's strategy has clearly been part of DJI's road to market dominance, but sources say it has also created the problem of infighting between employees and crushed morale for those who can't quite keep up. Allegedly, DJI has participated in a so-called Black Ops mission, which included setting up 50 fake accounts to ruin a rival's reputation by posting negative comments on a forum. The forum head saw that all of the IP addresses were coming from Shenzhen, leading back to DJI. According to a former employee, their customer service is notoriously bad. Top executives would often jump into support cases to try and use flight data taken from the drone to dispute the cause of crashes to stop refunds. DJI drones have the ability to be flown much higher than is legal, in some cases as high as up to 4 miles or about 6.5 kilometers. This happened in one instance in China, and the drone very nearly crashed into a People's Liberation Army Air Force fighter jet. As a response to this, the Chinese military forced DJI into developing a controlled database where they can identify and monitor drones flying across China. The system uses a black box inside the drones, which has a unique ID that is connected to people's phone numbers in China. They turned over the system to China's Air Force and did not want their name to be on it, as it would obviously lead to the conclusion that DJI had been working with the military. But here's the real kicker in all of this. In 2017, DJI provided police drones to the Public Security Bureau of Xinjiang. If you don't know of the atrocities that have been going on in this region, I highly suggest you go look into that. Last week tonight's episode on this should give you a good understanding. I will link that video down in the description below. But essentially, a mostly Muslim ethnic minority known as the Uyghurs have been treated terribly by the Chinese government. Over 1 million people have been detained, separated from their families, and have been forced into internment camps. It is a truly horrific situation, and one that DJI have at least partly assisted in, where their drones have been in use for surveillance of the Uyghurs held in the camps. Now, is it really DJI's fault? Do they even have a choice but to assist? I don't know, probably not, but therein lies the problem, in my opinion. Having a market leader in anything that is under the thumb of the Chinese regime seems to be a recipe for disaster. Let's not kid ourselves. Even if DJI were a Western company, their technology could and would still be used for things like this in places in the world where the technology is not regulated properly. But at least then, the Chinese government could not strong-arm the company into developing things that further empower this misuse of the technology. So to conclude this video, is DJI evil? Well, that's up to you to decide. All I can do is try to provide enough information for you to make up your own minds. If you ask me for my opinion, I'm torn. On the one hand, they've clearly had some shady business practices. On the other hand, I think where they are located has a lot to do with their misconducts. Sorry for the longer video, there was just too much information to cram into 3 minutes this time. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you could like the video, subscribe and tell your friends to help get this channel off the ground. Thanks, and see you next time.